The fight coming up this weekend is really, really interesting. When I saw the main event, I thought, wow, this is such an interesting clash of styles. You've got Fluffy Hernandez, who has none of the attributes, but all of the heart and determination and skill. Like, this guy embodies having heart. He fights really good strikers and mixes it up with them on the feet, but then overwhelms them and just suffocates you. He fights a little bit like an avalanche, or it just builds and it builds and it builds and it builds. And he's stubborn in that he's going to win and he believes in himself. I mean, upsetting Rodolfo Vieira, submitting him, and then beating Kopilov. I mean, who thought that was going to happen? I didn't. He's just come out and looked really good. It's a bit shocking, actually, in a way. Then we have Michel Pereira, who is on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's almost like a lightning bolt. Like, just bang, done. Just hits you with just so much power and explosiveness, and almost lacked that refined technique. Like when he fought Tristan Connolly, he had like he came in and he's like dancing and doing flips inside of the octagon, and it's like, brother, save your energy. You know, you might need this. And Connolly, if I remember correctly, was coming up from lightweight to meet him at welterweight, whereas Pereira is fighting at middleweight now because he's a big boy, and I think he was hurting himself a little bit, cutting down to 170. And we're seeing the 185 Pereira on an 8-fight win streak, but just at 185 looks so much better, so much more hydrated, refreshed, clean, powerful. He was always powerful at 170, but now he really believes in that power. We've seen his last 2 wins have been by submission, but he's hurt the guys before. So we know he's got the technical skill on the ground. What worries me for Pereira is the wrestling. Is he going to be able to, like, number one is the cardio, and then number 2 is the wrestling. Is he going to be able to last? If he doesn't knock out Fluffy in that, or Alexander Hernandez in that first round, he might be in trouble. I'm worried. I'm a bit worried. I've been back and forth on this fight more than a ping pong table. Honestly, I can't decide who the hell is going to win. I am picking Michel Pereira, but it's not a confident pick. I'd have it 60-40. I just think the speed, the power, the striking technique of Pereira is going to prove to be too much. And I do actually think he finishes Hernandez, because I was going back on Hernandez's record and he got knocked out by Kevin Holland. And if you've watched any of my videos, you know I really don't like Kevin Holland. If I'm Fluffy Hernandez, I'm pressuring, but pressuring as safely as I possibly can. And I'm going to gradually, throughout the fight, build that pressure and take more risks. The more I've depleted the cardio of Pereira, the more I'm able to take risks and pressure him back. So working off the jab, crowding Pereira and shooting early. Just shoot the takedowns. It doesn't matter if you're going to get them or not. You're probably not going to get them. You could get lucky and try and time Pereira throwing a big hook or a big right hand and duck under it and get a reactive takedown. Those are going to be the kind of takedowns you want to get, because then you can wear on Pereira. You might not be able to submit him in the first round, but if he can get some ground control time, that's going to not only mentally affect Pereira, but also physiologically take away from his gas tank. And then if you're Pereira, the game plan is use your footwork, capitalize on punishing the overextensions of Hernandez, because Hernandez does rush forward a little bit too. He's a bit of a bull rusher. And if you can take an angle and counter him coming in, you've got all the opportunity in the world to hurt him and potentially finish the fight. So those are the kind of game plans that I go. And obviously with Pereira, watch the takedowns. Be aware that Fluffy is going to try and shoot in, and just make sure you've got that solid sprawl defense. Don't go for guillotines. Just keep him on the outside. If you are going to come in, combinations, start to the body, come up to the head. That's the game plan or the approach that I would take. Rob Font versus Kyler Phillips. I really like Kyler Phillips. I think he's part of this new generation or this new wave, almost the Topuria generation of fighters that are on about 13 or 14 fights, and they've sort of come into MMA in the last like 4 or 5 years. And these are the guys that were training MMA from like 12 years old. And you can see it in their style. A perfect, fluid collection of skills and techniques. It's not like I'm a boxer who can wrestle, or I'm a jiu-jitsu guy who knows Muay Thai. It's like, no, I just know how to fight. And I fight fluidly. They flow. Kyler Phillips, the kicks, the punches, it's fluid. It connects. There's just a smoothness to his mixing up of different attacks. And I really like it. Rob Font, bit long in the tooth again, getting older, taking a lot of damage, not looking amazing recently. He did have that win over Yanez, but I struggle to see how Font wins this fight. I think Phillips is going to be a little bit too quick, bit too clean. I think he's going to mix up those kicks. I actually think we could see Phillips potentially knock out Font with a head kick, but I think the toughness of Font is going to show in this fight, and I would lean towards Phillips winning a decision here. Charles Johnson versus Sumidoji. Right. If you know me, you know that I picked Charles Johnson to beat Joshua Van. I was one of very few that thought he was going to win that fight. And boy, that was a banger. What a banger of a fight. The way he came back and threw that combination in the third round. Oh. God damn, I love MMA. You know I'm going with my boy Charles Johnson. Just the shaved head with the little ponytail at the back, the tattoos, you know, the slick boxing, long, rangy, clean, like low hands, powerful hooks, combinations. He works so well off the jab. Really, just a unique fighter. I love it when fighters come in and they don't look like all the other fighters. You know, they've got something about them that just gives you a bit like, oh, fucking hell, this guy's a bit different, you know? Love that. Sumidoji, I'm going to be completely honest. I was in a bit of a rush today, so I didn't watch any of his fights. I think he's going to lose. I think he's been submitted in his last 2 fights, so I think they're actually giving Charles Johnson an easy win here. He has literally fought the who's who. He's been put up against some serious competition in his last few fights. So yeah, Johnson, TKO, second round. Let's go. I know I'm jumping from the fights a little bit here, but Rebellis to Spain versus Austin Lane. I mean, what is there really to say? They're setting up to Spain here. Austin Lane, I think he came over from the NFL, but just very clunky, okay at wrestling, I guess, but clearly not a BJJ savant. Hasn't showed me anything that I've got anything to worry about. Despain, I think, comes from Taekwondo. Nice, lean back counter, like can knock you out moving backwards or forwards. I think that fluidity of striking is going to be way too much for Austin Lane. I think Austin Lane gets chinned in the first round, to be completely honest with you. And then now we've got Brad Katona versus Jean Matsumoto. Now, I like the style of Matsumoto. I think he's good. And honestly, if you've watched some of my previous videos, you know that I don't love SPG Ireland. I think actually, although, yeah, Conor McGregor was good coming up out of the camp, I think over time it showed that the camp isn't very good. The training just isn't what it should be. They're a little bit behind, especially in terms of the wrestling. The boxing out of the camp is pretty decent. And I think with Katona, we do see him making those fight IQ mistakes. He's not great at closing distance. He's always just slightly out of range. And he mixes things up. He's got good fight IQ and a lot of experience. He's good at coming in behind his jab, throwing his overhands, chaining it with his takedowns. Nice short left hook. Don't love him. Really, I don't think he's that good. I know he has won the Ultimate Fighter twice, but honestly, nothing that I'm massively impressed with, to be completely honest with you. Whereas Matsumoto, the thing I'm worried about is he's mainly a submission guy, and because these are both short fighters, Katona does have decent wrestling defense, So I think he should be able to keep it on the feet. And I think the striking edge is going to go to Katona. So I think he is going to win a boring decision on, just landing a few. I think Katona wins this fight just by landing a few more strikes every round than Matsumoto does. I would love to go with the sort of 15-0 hype prospect, but I just can't. I just think the experience is going to be a little bit too much. So those are my picks. Going with Katona by decision. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And I'll see you next week.